Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan and today I'm going to be giving one harsh truth for every single NHL team. Now I got my buddy Abe Lincoln in the background to just fill the air with some honesty here today, and I'm going to go through every single NHL team and basically just give the tough truth about your favorite NHL team and how they're trending, how they're going, and how it's looking right now. So, what do I see as the harshest truths right now in the NHL, and what do I see as the harshest truth for your favorite NHL team? Watch till the end for all of the truths and all the harshness, and hit that subscribe button for more hockey content just like this one. Once again, 63% of you people that have watched the channel over the past 28 days are not subscribed, so get it done. You don't want to disappoint Abe Lincoln. Come on. Anyways, we're gonna start out today with the Anaheim Ducks, work our way to the harsh truths of the Winnipeg Jets, and starting today with the harsh truth of the Anaheim Ducks. My harsh truth for them is that John Gibson will be past his prime once Anaheim actually gets a good team around him. He's 27 years old right now, and obviously goaltenders take more time to actually decline in most cases. Obviously, not everybody's a Henrik Lundqvist where they just stay fantastic forever almost, but John Gibson is a guy that I think already started to see some wear and tear this last season. I thought was kind of average, and it kind of sucks to see because of how good he was the past couple of years in 2018 and 2019. But this is a guy that has already been through so much on those Anaheim Ducks defenses that have not given him the greatest favors, and I think this is a player that once the team finally starts to get good, probably in 3 or 4 years, might not be as good as he once was. He might still be a good goaltender, but past his prime, I think is probably where he would be. Going on to the Arizona Coyotes, harsh truth, and boy, oh boy, is there a lot of them. First up, I think the franchise is cursed. I think something put up. Maybe it was Abe. Maybe Abe, I don't even know. Maybe Abe put a curse on the Arizona Coyotes. I don't know why he'd do that, but who knows? But yeah, for me, they're basically cursed forever to just go to the Houston. I mean, it's the worst. It's the worst kept secret in the NHL. I think they're cursed to basically just go to Houston at some point. I mean, the franchise has just seemed to find new ways to be a disaster. Sadly, I still want Arizona to work out. But it's proved itself to not exactly be the greatest investment over these past couple of decades. Going on to the Boston Bruins, harsh truth. For me, it was kind of hard to pinpoint with Boston because I still don't think they're going to be terrible in the next few years once guys like Bergeron and Tuukka Rask retire, because they still got Pastrnak, they still got McAvoy. But to me, the Boston Bruins won't really get over the hump of another Stanley Cup with the prospect pool they have. They really have nobody besides Jack Studnicka that I think could really make a big impact at the NHL level. They got some solid prospects like Trent Frederick, who will be fourth liners, but nothing really more than that. I think Boston could really use some more youth injection, more than McAvoy, more than just Pastrnak and those guys. They've been doing a good job. Obviously, they got DeBorak, they got guys like Andre Kasha who are there too, but I don't really think it's enough yet. For Boston, they could win the cup potentially, but I just feel like they might need some more youth on that team, especially on that defense as well. Going on to the Buffalo Sabres, though, my harsh truth for them is that Taylor Hall simply is not enough. I mean, Taylor Hall is a good addition, but I mean, that defense is still where defense goes to die. I mean, it's just not good, and that goaltending as well. I think Linus Ullmark is decent, but I don't know how much he sustains over the course of a full season, especially if Carter Hutton is not able to get a lot of games in. So I think Taylor Hall is a good addition, but for Buffalo, it's not the complete answer at all. Going on to the Calgary Flames, harsh truth. For me, I've had this opinion for a while. Sean Monahan is not the first-line center that they need. He's an excellent second-line center guy, but he's a player that I just don't think will get them over the hump. Calgary's an interesting team. I could see them finishing as high as like number 2 in the Pacific Division next year if we do see the divisions that way. And they have a pretty competitive roster. But to me, I just feel like Sean Monahan just doesn't bring as much as I would like for Calgary. With guys like Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau as the wingers there, they kind of uplift Sean Monahan a little bit. I think he's a good center, but as a bona fide first center option, I'm not quite convinced, at least not yet. Going on to the Carolina Hurricanes, my harsh truth for them is that their goaltending simply is not enough. I mean, Peter Mrazek was good in 2019, James Reimer has been solid, but I do think that Carolina really did need a solid goaltender. I thought they were maybe going to go for Jacob Markstrom, maybe for a couple of years, we'll see. But I feel like they just need a true starter in goal. I like Mrazek, I like James Reimer, but those two guys are both woefully inconsistent, especially Peter Mrazek. And I think that's a team that kind of has to rest on their goaltending because of that. I mean, they still have a great defense, so it'll kind of cover a little bit of that. But I don't know. I feel like, especially in this free agent market with a ton of goaltenders available, they could have gone a little bit more creative in that aspect. Going on to the Chicago Blackhawks harsh truth. To me, for Chicago at least, you have both Kane and Taves there right now, and obviously they've officially gone in the rebuild. To me, the harsh truth is they're not going to win a cup with Kane and Taves again. They're just not. To me, they got their 3 cups. I think they're going to retire as Blackhawks, but I don't see them winning another cup and being truly a cup contender while they're there. They could get close to being that point, and they could make the playoffs maybe a couple of times in a couple of years, but this is a team that's fully committed to the rebuild, which I think is a fantastic idea. They're finally biting the bullet and going for it, but I don't think those two guys will see another cup, at least in their time with Chicago. Going on to the Colorado Avalanche, I had a tough time trying to come up with anything, but for me, the Colorado Avalanche, they might lose somebody pretty big in the Seattle Kraken expansion draft. Now, I had them losing Devon Taves because of that, and they have to protect Johnson because of his no-move clause. They have Girard and Cale Makar as well. Now, Johnson could end up waiving his no-move clause, and if that happens, then they aren't in big trouble. But if he doesn't, they have to give up a guy like a Samuel Girard or a Devon Taves, which is not exactly ideal, especially in Devon Taves' case where they just got him this offseason. Going on to the Columbus Blue Jackets, my big concern, my harsh truth for them, I'm not sure if it's a harsh truth, but it's more so maybe a question, is just if they have enough to get past the first or even the second round. They made the second round in 2019 and lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round of this past bubble playoffs. To me, Columbus is a weird one. I think on paper they have some pretty strong players, especially defensively, but that team, even though they add Max Domi, I don't think is still skilled enough to get over that ledge. I mean, when you look at a team like Tampa, they have the defense, they have the goaltending more than Columbus does, and way more offensive talent, way more star power. Obviously did not help them in 2019, but they learned their lesson in 2020 and was a much more complete team, and they beat Columbus pretty handily. I just don't see with Columbus how they're able to rival teams like Boston, Tampa. I mean, they beat Toronto, but going into the next season, I think Toronto's going to be a more complete team. We'll see what happens, but Columbus kind of worries me in terms of getting far in the 2021 playoffs. Anyways, sorry, I had to make an edit there. I was about to... I didn't have water throughout that whole recording, and my voice was about to die, so I'm back, and we're good. Now we're going to go on to the Dallas Stars, and my harsh truth for my favorite NHL team in Dallas. To me, when it comes to the Stars, I think the furthest we've seen them in the playoffs, of course, this past year, in 2020 is the furthest we'll see them make in the playoffs, get in the playoffs in the 2020s. I think we won't see them get that far again until at least the 2030s. I mean, they have some pretty great young pieces, but I just don't see how this team gets over the hump as they did this year. And I kind of knew that going into these playoffs anyways, no matter if they lost in the first round or something. I knew that this year was probably the best chance they had at not just getting far in the playoffs, but potentially winning the Stanley Cup. Sadly, did not happen because of the Tampa Bay Lightning, but the point still stands. I just don't see Dallas having enough, and when they finally collapse, I think it'll be a pretty big-sized event to where they're going to have to be rebuilding for a few years. So I think it'll take some time before Dallas even gets close to that point again. Sadly, though, I would love to be wrong about this 100%. Then going on to the Detroit Red Wings, my harsh truth for them is that as long as Jeff Blashill is the coach, they are going absolutely nowhere. Now, this might not be a hot take or anything, but to me, Jeff Blashill is absolutely not the answer. I really don't know why Detroit is still keeping on to him, though if they're keeping on him to be terrible, that's a different story. If you're doing that, then that's perfectly acceptable because that's a fantastic way. But if they actually intend on winning games with Jeff Blashill, we might have some problems. Going on to the Edmonton Oilers, my biggest concern, my harsh truth for them is the goaltending. I mean, I like Mikko Koskinen, but Koskinen and Mike Smith has failed them the past couple of years, just in general. And Mike Smith was absolutely horrendous in the playoffs, was horrendous in the regular season, and they signed him again. And for no reason. They signed him for more than guys that were better than him, way better than him. And Mike Smith better be like the best person on human earth right now, because there were so many options for Edmonton to go after in terms of backups. Just backups. They had so many options. So many options. But they go for Mike Smith, who is terrible. He's absolutely terrible. So I don't know what Edmonton's trying to do. Just hope that Liam Draisaitl does the same season. We'll see. Going on to the the Florida Panthers are next. Mine is that they need to move closer to Miami. I don't care how many friggin' hardcore Panthers fans are in Sunrise. Move them to Miami or even Fort Lauderdale, where more people are, where more potential fans are, to actually get them in the stands. Needs to happen. Make it happen, Florida. Going on to the LA Kings, my harsh truth for them is that Drew Doughty's contract will absolutely sink them in the future. He makes $11 million until like frickin' the freaking second coming of God, basically. I think it's like 2027 or something. He's locked up forever. And it's going to be a problem when you have a guy like $11 million Drew Doughty, who's definitely not worth $11 million, making $11 million, when guys like Quinton Byfield, Alex Turcotte need their paydays, and much deserved as well. This is a team that I'm kind of concerned for cap-wise, at least in that respect. I think mostly they'll be fine because all the guys they have now besides Doughty are going to be off in the next few years. But that contract concerns me, with at least where LA is going. Drew Doughty is still a good player, offensively especially, but not worth $11 million and not worth $11 million even close in my opinion. Going on to the Minnesota Wild, my harsh truth for them is that maybe it's more of just a concern. Obviously, Minnesota is more on the defensive side of things, and with Bruce Boudreau, great tactical hockey as well with that defensive system. But as guys like Fiala and Rossi and Kaprizov really start to get that mainstay spots on the offense, I'm kind of concerned that they'll kind of be a little bit suppressed, like a Matthew Barzal, let's say, on the New York Islanders. Maybe not that much, but personally, all I'm asking for is that Rossi and Kaprizov and Fiala just get the room to breathe, get the room to show their offensive muscles that I know they do have. Going on to the Montreal Canadiens, though, my harsh truth for them is that Jonathan Drouin was an absolute failure. It was an absolute failure of a trade. Mikhail Sergachev is worlds more valuable. And, the more they try to force this fit with Jonathan Drouin, it's just not going to happen. As long as Drouin has trade value, Montreal should trade him. They should trade him as soon as humanly possible. It's not going to work out in Montreal. It's not going to work out some other place. You can maybe prove me wrong when Drouin scores 80 points, except it's not going to happen because Drouin is not that great. And I'm sorry, it just has to be this way. When you trade Mikhail Sergachev for a guy that basically can't do anything, okay, maybe I'm putting too much on Jonathan. I think he's all right, but especially that contract and what Montreal gave up for him, I think it's time to move on. Going on to the Nashville Predators, my harsh truth for them is that since 2017, Nashville has been a steaming hot pile of mediocre. Obviously, they were great regular season-wise in 2018, but how did that get you? Not too far in the playoffs. I gotta say this. I'm being mean in this episode. I'm sorry, Preds fans. I'm sorry. It's a harsh truth for every team. I gotta say it. But since 2017, the Nashville Predators have been insanely mediocre, not just in the records, but in how they play. This is a team that I think just needs a big shakeup in a lot of areas. Obviously, they got John Hines, but I really didn't see any real changes in terms of how they're playing and how they're set up. To me, Nashville could use maybe a little bit of a big shift in their franchise, but we'll see what happens. Just since 2017 has not worked out too well. Going on to the New Jersey Devils, though, my harsh truth for them is that, honestly, I mean, I hate to say this, but I think the Devils are still pretty far along away from actually being not just a playoff contender, like contending for the playoffs, but just in general getting to that spot. To me, New Jersey's probably at least 2 or 3 years away. And I could see maybe even 4 years away from being a true contender in the NHL. And I think they could make the playoffs in like 2 or 3 years if everything goes right, but everything has to kind of go right for them too. They gotta get another Taylor Hall that just comes out of nowhere or something. But I think they just need a lot more depth, especially on that forward group, before that actually happens. And personally, I'm just hoping that Mackenzie Blackwood is good enough by that point to still be the great guy that he is. He's an elite player, so we'll see. Going on to the New York Islanders, my harsh truth for them is that, honestly, the Islanders are absolutely screwed. I mean, this is a team that might be good for like a couple more seasons, but they had to trade Devon Taves to make room for Matthew Barzal, and that's just horrific. I mean, Lou Lamoriello has done some fantastic things in the past, but let's not kid ourselves. He has put the Islanders in a screwy situation, at least right now. He's obviously trying to win now, and that's perfectly fine, but in 5 years, it's not going to look too great. Obviously, you got Matthew Barzal, but once everybody retires, and once a bunch of the people retire from the oldest roster in the NHL, by the way, it's not exactly going to look too pretty, so they better win their cups right now or else. Going on to the New York Rangers, my biggest concern with them, and this is also, I don't know if this is a harsh truth, this is just my biggest concern, I would say, is that the development program with the New York Rangers, or maybe the philosophy or something, is kind of, it's not working too great right now. And this is something that I've kind of noticed a little bit. I might talk about like this in a separate video or something, but guys like Kakko, Vitaly Kravtsov, Elias Anderson, Hedel, Brett Houghton, guys coming into the Rangers organization, coming into the AHL team or even the NHL team, and basically looking like shells of themselves. And I don't know, this isn't 100% of the time, because guys like Shesterkin have gone there, or have come to the AHL system, even Adam Fox. But with Shesterkin, he was mostly developed in the KHL. Adam Fox was mostly developed in Harvard. And you can make the case that both of those guys were barely touched by the Rangers. But in terms of developing guys within the system of the AHL, and even the NHL team, it hasn't exactly worked out too great. I'm still skeptical of this actually being like an actual thing to talk about, but I don't know. It's a trend that I've kind of noticed and I'm kind of concerned with. Hopefully, we see that change of guys like Alexei Lafreniere. Then going on to the Ottawa Senators, my biggest concern, the harsh truth that I have is just Eugene Melnyk, man. I mean, yeah, he signed Thomas Chabot and he's let the bank floodgates open a little bit with the free agency, but I still have my concerns of him actually being the owner to lead the Ottawa Senators to the promised land. I still don't see it. Yeah, he's been making some money happen recently, but I don't know. He's just Eugene Melnyk has just been all over the place for so long now that I'm just so tired. I'm so tired. Just get him out of here. Get somebody new. Please. Ottawa Senators fans absolutely deserve somebody new and somebody actually competent. Please make it happen. Going on to the Philadelphia Flyers, harsh. Please say harsh. My goodness. For Philadelphia, for me at least, I mean, my biggest harsh truth for them was just after these 2020 playoffs. And especially in that series versus the New York Islanders, I thought they were just trying to be the Islanders and nothing else. And they were a worse version than the New York Islanders. The Islanders were actually the good version of the Islanders. The Flyers were definitely not. And in this situation, they were just playing against the Islanders. They were playing worse than them in basically every single way and trying to beat them, basically. That's kind of what I saw, at least especially in that series, but also in the playoffs. A lot more than what I saw in the regular season with Philadelphia. So I'm hoping that Philadelphia can get a little bit more of themselves out there next year, at least in the playoffs, and stop trying to be this stupid trap team. They're not made to be that. They have some great gifted offensive players, and because they were playing more of this trap system, guys like Giroux started to slump a little bit. To me, Philadelphia needs a little bit more of their own brand instead of trying to be the New York Islanders who end up losing to the Tampa Bay Lightning anyways in the Eastern Conference Final. Going on to the Pittsburgh Penguins, harsh truth. I'm just going to say this right now. Since 2017, Jim Rutherford has maybe been like a bottom 5 GM. He has made some extraordinarily stupid moves, in my opinion. But like the Penguins have still been good. I just think they could have been a lot better. It's just since 2017, he's made some baffling ones, to say the least. Going on to the San Jose Sharks, my harsh truth for them is to just rebuild. Just make it happen. Bite the bullet. Go for it, guys. I mean, here's the thing. San Jose has some excellent players still, and they could rebound next year. But with that goaltending tandem, it's, in my opinion, the worst in the NHL. With that defense that still defensively has not been fixed too much, nearly at all, basically at all. It's not even been touched, basically. This is a team that I think is in need of a hard reset. And I don't think they're in the position really to do that since they have so many players locked up to so many years. But that's what happens when you be stupid sometimes. And yeah, I feel like the San Jose Sharks should just go fully into it and just try to get as many picks as possible. I mean, their prospect pool is looking really good right now. If they keep guys like Carlson, if they keep guys like Hurdle and Couture for the long haul, maybe they could get around in the next few years. Going on to the St. Louis Blues, my harsh truth for them revolves around Jordan Binnington. To me, Jordan Binnington, for me, is not a one-hit wonder, but I think the season in 2019 that he had, where, of course, he won the Stanley Cup, will be the best season statistically that he ends up having. He was kind of a lot more average this last year, and especially in the playoffs, got absolutely exposed. To me, Binnington will be a solid starter for a while for St. Louis, but not a guy that'll win them the Cup almost single-handedly like he did in 2019. Then going out of the Tampa Bay Lightning, my harsh truth for them is they kind of need to trade Steven Stamkos. I mean, especially with the expansion draft looming, they're probably going to have to lose somebody big. But if they trade Steven Stamkos, it's a much more interesting question. And the thing is, they could lose somebody in the expansion draft and still probably have to trade Steven Stamkos eventually. They got to sign Brayden Point eventually when he comes off his 3-year deal, which was signed like a year and a half ago. You got to sign all these different guys. You got to sign Sergachev eventually once he comes off his new deal and stuff like that. I think Tampa will be eventually good, but Steven Stamkos, at least short term, might be the answer. And I don't know, man. He is obviously the captain, but Tampa doesn't exactly have too many options. Going on to the Toronto Maple Leafs, well, Toronto's fun. Toronto's really fun. Not really. But with Toronto, I think personally it's just the right side on the defense. I mean, I love the TJ Brodie acquisition. I think he's going to be great. But you got on the right side Brodie, Hall, and Bogosian. I mean, that's still, I love Brodie, but that's not exactly lighting me up on. That's not giving me so much excitement that I'm bursting out to explode. I think Toronto could really use another guy on that right side that can really play on a top 4 spot, lock it down, and be as good as possible. And that's what I think just Toronto needs in general, is more defensive help. But especially on that right side, it is badly needed. I don't think Justin Holl or Zach Bogosian is going to be top 4 caliber anytime soon. Going on to the Vancouver Canucks, my harsh truth for them right now is that the Canucks will be a little bit worse than they were last year. And I'm not sure even if a little bit worse, maybe a lot worse. Maybe we'll see. Obviously, losing Jacob Markstrom is going to be really interesting. And also losing guys like Chris Tanev, who had a really good season overall. I think the Canucks will take a little bit of a step back. They'll still be a playoff team, and they might still be top 3 in the Pacific, but this is a team that I would not be surprised if they're a wild card team or even lose in the first round. I'm really not totally convinced with Vancouver, and this might be one of those transition years where Thatcher Demko maybe takes the net, starts to get used to it, and the young guys really start to become the guys for the Vancouver Canucks. Then going on to the Vegas Golden Knights, my harsh truth for them is that Alex Pietrangelo is not the answer. I mean, I like Pietrangelo, and I think he's going to be good in Vegas, but they already got an offensive defenseman in Shea Theodore. They needed more defense, but also I think they could have used another big-time scorer. They got Max Pacioretty, and they had William Karlsson 2 years ago. But besides Max Pacioretty, there's nobody really too reliable in Vegas to get the goals when they need it. And that was, for me at least, a pretty big problem versus Dallas was their finishing ability. They really didn't have too much of that. So I felt like could have used maybe a sniper, maybe a Mike Hoffman. I mean, he's still out there, but I don't know. I feel like Pietrangelo, it just wasn't the complete answer that Vegas needed to be a dynasty or even win the cup in the first place. Then going on to the Washington Capitals, my harsh truth is the Eagle jersey they just released for the reverse retro is easily the best jersey they've ever had, and it is an absolute shame it is not their home and aways right now and right here. Then going on to the Winnipeg Jets, my harsh truth for them, finally, we're going to get into the last team, is that their defense just sucks. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it today, folks. They did nothing to their defense that already sucked and already was terrible. Yeah, I think Josh Morrissey's going to have a rebound year, and same thing for Dylan DeMello, but even if those guys have insanely good years, it's not good. Like, defensively, it's not good. Neil Pionk will be great on offense, and especially on the power play. He'll be fantastic, but in terms of defense, I'm not exactly holding out any hopes for a hero right there. Dylan DeMello is really the only guy that really specializes more on the defensive side of things, and I think that's still a great acquisition a year ago, but they haven't made substantial improvements defensively, and I think that's a big reason why they'll kind of fall back a little bit in terms of expectations and why Connor Hellebuck, once again, will probably be overwhelmed, sadly. I mean, he should have won the Vezina Trophy last year. It's an absolute sham that he didn't, and if he puts up the same performance this year, honestly, I would not be too surprised. But that is going to be it for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell as well to get notified on all the new videos. Make sure you comment down below your thoughts on all the harsh truths. What do you agree and disagree with? And let me know one harsh truth that you would give your favorite NHL team. Make sure you share this video with your friends, get it out there, and click on this card as well to watch the worst trade for every single NHL team throughout history. Watch that video. I know it's pretty good. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I am recording this at 3:45 a.m. I decided at like 11 p.m. that I would record 5 videos straight, so that's what I've been doing. And now it is like 4 hours later, and I've made extremely bad progress. This is the final video I'm recorded, so I'm feeling pretty good about it. Thanks so much for watching, all y'all, and I'll see you in the next video or stream. I can finally get some sleep. Good night.